I beg your indulgence because I'm just going to sort of free associate for a while. I want to talk about, where the notion of the alliances came from and why. I'm less prepared to talk about 3 years in, what are we learning? I'm going to rely on Chris to help me out there, but I do want to go back to why we thought of the alliances. I think most of you know that I had a long career in Chicago, working either for the school district or in organizations that thought of themselves as partners to the district. And the last 12 years I was employed by the Consortium on Chicago School Research. And it was actually, work that I really loved doing. I loved being part of sort of a civic endeavor about school improvement where the researchers really felt like they were partners of the district helping them. It was equally important for us to believe that we maintained independence and objectivity and had some sort of a firewall so that we weren't seen as in the back pocket of the school district. At the same time, we didn't want to be seen as kind of an enemy of the school district, always sniping and so forth. So we balanced this. And so I took this real belief that yes, you could do this kind of work. Yes, you could do useful, practical, relevant research that was in the service of school improvement. I took that idea to Washington with me, and it came out. There have been many manifestations of it, but the one that you're most familiar are these research alliances. And, I think if I had a bigger goal beyond the research alliances, I would really like for education researchers to kind of reconceptualize how they operate and their work and what their goals are. And at the same time, I saw the word reciprocal over there. I think that as there's an opportunity for policymakers and practitioners and state and local agencies to think more analytically and to think more about, well, how do we try these things out in ways where we can learn from them? How do we evaluate as we go along? How do we build in systematic approaches to continuous improvement? So these are sort of the goals here. Several years ago, soon after I got to DC, some foundation, it was probably the W.T. Grant Foundation, it might have been the Spencer Foundation, convened a group of consortium-like researchers. The Chicago folks were there. New York City Research Alliance is just getting going. Baltimore was going. An organization called SERP, Strategic Education Research Partnerships, that works across the country. And after a day's conversation, one of the people there, Catherine Snow from Harvard, kind of summarized what she saw, the differences in traditional ivory tower-based researchers and people like us who work with school districts and state agencies, how they approach the work a little bit differently. And one thing that she said that really struck me is that a lot of the work was really, really good descriptive research. And that's something that I think we've lost, IES has lost a little bit, that how important that is. So we see this in a way as trying to reinvigorate that field. Let's get really good about it. This is something that I, again, wish Ruth were here because she's thought a lot about this and thinking, well, can we provide some guidance on what really good descriptive research is? In my days in Chicago, we often said that sometimes this descriptive research was, centered around a problem that the district was facing, but it helped make that problem more transparent and more understand the connections to the problems. Again, it's not causal research, but it's a way to view what's happening, what's going on more clearly. Another thing that Catherine noticed among this group was that the researcher really kind of changed his or her role from the person who wrote the research questions to the person who helps the practitioners and the policymakers formulate their research questions. I mean, it's clear that researchers have a set of skills around this area that are well-defined and well-honed. It's a kind of expertise that not everybody has. But it's different to write the research question yourself than it is to help the people who are struggling with the problem formulate in a researchable way. So I think that's a real important distinction. And a third thing that I think is really important that we all struggle with is this idea of, we call it dissemination or communication, that these relationships actually change the nature of what it means to do dissemination. And that's in part because with more people at the table together, researchers, practitioners, policymakers, we've got more people with a skin in the game. We've got more people who are actually understanding what's happening, what the findings are, what the implications are. So it becomes less of a, dissemination comes from this, seed the ground idea, and but these more collaborative approaches to research actually makes this a different issue because we've got the folks there understanding what's going on. So I, went to Washington with these experiences and wanted to be honest, I wanted to change IES. IES was very focused on rigorous research, causal impact estimates, and that has served us very well. But we're at the point now where we're not being questioned for our technical capacity. We're being questioned about, are we being useful? Are we being relevant? So this is, where I came in. How are we going to push this? How are we going to continue to move in that direction? Maintain our integrity around the science of the research, but really focus it on problems of practice, problems of policy. So there were a number of efforts at IES over these past couple of years that have focused on this. We have a grant program called the Researcher Practitioner Partnerships. We have a new big program that you've probably seen called Continuous Improvement Research and Education that requires close partnerships that have already been there. And we're even beginning to sort of push on our training programs. We're a light touch now, but the recent competition encourages predoctoral training that is supported by IES to have internships, practicums, apprenticeships in real-life agencies. It encourages researchers to learn how to communicate better with practitioners and policymakers. And of course, then there are the alliances here. I knew that, number one, we weren't going to replicate the Chicago experience. It was a time and place. It was a sort of a perfect storm, and there was no sense in trying to do that. It wouldn't work, and, I didn't feel like I should impose something like that, or we should even try. So over a year, a number of us inside IES, with a couple of outside helpers, talked and talked and talked and talked. What is the right thing for the regional labs? To be honest, I was concerned that the last generation of labs, with its emphasis on the big RCTs, was actually sort of losing touch with your constituencies, and I thought the Research Alliance was a way to redevelop that relationship with constituencies in a way that would be seen as useful and helpful and so forth. So my hope for the alliances is that there would be X number of them that would actually develop these kind of trusting, relationships that would be productive and get some good work done that would be of value. And again, I think the reciprocal capacity building part was really important to the initial ideas here, and I don't know how much it's happening. I sure hope that it is happening, that the people in the agencies develop a greater appreciation for what the research community can bring to them, while at the same time the research community is much more aware of, close to, in touch with the pulse in the school building. Okay, I'm not going to say, two more things. So in November, I made my second visit to a regional education lab. I've attended tons of meetings, especially ones that have been in Washington. Actually, with two exceptions, only meetings in Washington. I visited REL Northwest at a board meeting a couple of years ago, and then my second trip to a REL event was this November, when I went to Brockton, Massachusetts, and had the best day that I'd had in years. I was in literally just euphoric. It was a meeting of what they call the Urban School Improvement Alliance, which is made up of, I believe, 8 mid-sized school districts, urban districts from the Northeast region. And about 4 or 5 of them there. Dave was there from Yonkers, Brockton was there, Worcester, Massachusetts, Syracuse, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. And so 5 directors of research and evaluation, highly trained, really good, technical, smart people there. And I just had the best time hearing them grapple with the issues that they face in their cities, their own belief in the power of their skills and capacity to help their district on their road to improvement. So it was extremely gratifying to me to see that they had this opportunity to interact. One thing that came loud and clear was these people don't have a peer group affiliation. And, they're in districts that are just big enough to afford to have a director of research or a director of accountability who probably, have they probably have to do planning and assessment and 6 other things. But they have strong training, they have strong background. So for them to come together and have this chance to work collaboratively with each other and their districts, I thought was wonderful. So, but it leads me to the concern. Are we going to get something accomplished? Are we going to get, I hate to use the word product, but is there going to be something that actually occurs that these districts, that can be helpful to them? So I know 5 years goes really fast. I know that there's a lot of effort, a lot of time in the initial startup phase, the getting to know people, developing trust, building an agenda. It takes time, and that's probably the most crucial thing. But I'm really hopeful that of the 72 alliances, Chris, 72 research alliances across the country, that we get a critical mass that really are able to get some work done that actually benefits the members.